good morning, everyone. Welcome to another broadcast of Inspired by Kara. I'm your host. I'm Sue A. Webley, and I'm so glad that you're hanging out with me on this early Saturday morning. I know it's early for some of you, and I don't take it lightly that you're hanging out with me. If you don't know who I am, I'm Sue A. Webley. I'm the founder of Kara Solutions LLC, which provides administrative production and tech services to small business owners, social entrepreneurs, and faith-based and community-based organizations. And Inspire, this broadcast, this podcast, if you will, is a weekly event that was created to spotlight, to highlight BIPOC entrepreneurs, influencers, and creatives who are working to create change in their communities and in the world. And so we get to take an intimate look into the lives of our guests as they share their stories with us. This is the second episode in season 2, and I'm glad about it. And I just have to thank all of you again. I need to thank all of my family and friends, my classmates, my colleagues, every one of my guests that said yes over the first season and last week. Thank you all so much for supporting Inspire, for supporting me, and for supporting Inspire, for sharing, for giving me your feedback, for giving me your comments. It means so much to me. And honestly, it's your love and your encouragement is beyond appreciated. I could not do this without you. So thank you so much again. Right now, we are live on Facebook, we are live on LinkedIn, we are live on YouTube, and we're live on Twitter for now. I'm still debating whether we're going to stay on Twitter with everything that's happening on Twitter. Give me your feedback. What do you think? You think we should leave Twitter or we should hang out there? I don't know. I'm kind of feeling a little antsy about Twitter these days, but we're live over there now. If you happen to be watching, thank you for joining us on Twitter. We want to make sure that you do connect, follow, like, and subscribe. So we are all over social media. Again, we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We're at Kara Solutions LLC on those platforms. We are at Kara Solutions on Twitter for now. And always, you can head over to our website at www.kara-solutions.com to find out more about Kara Solutions, more about Inspire, more about me, all the things that Kara Solutions does. If you're so inclined, please go ahead and connect, follow, like, and subscribe. We want to make sure that you are not missing anything that's happening with Kara Solutions or with Inspire. We are also on podcasting platforms. So if you want to listen later, right? If you want to take it with you, we're on Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, and just added, we're now on Bullet and Flight Radio. I want to thank my brother, Just Dominic, for giving Inspire, right, the opportunity to be on that platform. And more platforms are going to be added later. But for right now, we are on all of those platforms. Let me see who's joining us. Good morning, Chaplain. Reverend Dr. I was going to say Chaplain Maureen, but Reverend Dr. Maureen Burns is on. Congratulations on the receipt of your doctorate. Listen. Hand claps to you. You're just such an inspiration, Dr. Maureen. Thank you so much. Hey, Minister Jules, my sister. It's so good to see you. Dr. Marilyn Pagan Banks, good morning. Buenos dias to you, my sister. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to ask that you share. Yesterday was Veterans Day, and so this broadcast today is very timely. And you know what I always do when I have folk watching, what are you sipping on? What are you drinking this morning? I'm going to go ahead and take a sip of my coffee. Of course, you know I got to have the Inspired cup, right? So let me take a sip of my coffee. So go ahead and shout out what you're sipping on. You have water, orange juice, apple juice. You have that really good smoothie that you got up and made this morning. Are you drinking coffee as well? What you're sipping on? Share with me what you're sipping on this morning. Oh, I see Dr. Jamie. Hi, Dr. Jamie Eddie. Dr. Jamie is going to be, listen, I'm glad that she's here because I'm just going to go ahead and show it now. She's going to join us next week. Dr. Jamie is joining us next week, and we're going to be talking about grief, loss, and making it through. She's joining us next week. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. Please, please, please come and hang out with us next week. And as Dr. Jamie talks about grief loss and making it through, which is so timely because we're in the holiday season. Where it's getting colder. We've already lost an hour of sunlight, and it's not it can be a depressing time for many people. So I think it's appropriate that we have that conversation right now, like before the Thanksgiving holiday hits, before Christmas hits. Listen, come and join us for this conversation. Come and join us for this conversation. So go ahead and shout out what you're sipping on. We are going to get into our show for today. Usually I do some news, but I'm just so excited about having Dr. PJ on. I'm going to bypass news this morning, and we're going to go right into our discussion. And I'm so grateful that she has decided to say yes, and that she had the time to come on, because she's a busy woman. Listen, she just finished a couple months ago her and it's on pre-order now, I believe, so you could correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. PJ, when you come on. Healing My Soul on Purpose. Healing My Soul on Purpose, a veteran's guide to suicide intervention. And so let me just do a little bit of introduction for Dr. PJ. I go back and forth between Chaplain PJ and Dr. PJ, but it's all the same. It's all the same to me, because she is just not somebody I plucked out of the blue. She is also a dear big sister. So PJ Anderson Banks, unless you want to say Pamela June, which is her full name. Pamela June is her full name. Okay, which I think is a beautiful name. So Pamela June Banks Anderson hails from Columbus, Ohio, where her growing up faith experience was family and church centered. She is a graduate of East High School, Columbus, Ohio, Cantorsville Community College, Johns Hopkins University, Howard University Divinity School, and Dayton United Theological Seminary. She is a woman of numerous firsts, including founder and soul-to-soul spiritual fitness coach of Space for Grace Without Walls United Church of Christ, Lansing, Michigan, providing services to veterans plus and their families. She is a lifetime member of the NAACP, the American Legion, a member of the Detroit Alumni Chapter 49 Phi Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, and a 2010 graduate of the Clinical Pastoral Education Resident Program, East Jefferson General Hospital in Metairie. I might have pronounced that wrong, LA. She has authored nine. I'm still trying to get one book out. She has authored 9 books that include the book that we're going to talk about today. Again, Healing My Soul and Purpose, A Veteran's Guide to Suicide Intervention. She's currently writing the 2nd edition of Between a Rock and Hard Places, Yet in the Struggle for Justice and Peace, and I Am the Hope and Dream of the Enslaved. I can't wait for those, because we will have you back. She's an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ and holds dual partnership standing with the Christian Church or Disciples of Christ. As a decorated and honorably discharged Lieutenant Commander of the U.S. Navy Chaplain Corps, she has provided ministry, grief and bereavement counseling, suicide intervention cafes, and pastoral leadership to civilians, service members, veterans plus, and military families throughout the United States and abroad in Rome and Naples, Italy, the island of Sicily, Ceuta Bay on the island of Crete, Rhoda, Spain, Rhine-Main, Germany, Accra, Ghana, the Ivory Coast, Africa, and Okinawa, Japan. Most importantly, Dr. Anderson is married to wisdom, who's married to wisdom, is a prodigal daughter of God. Now, again, she's all those things, but she's also a dear friend. I'm so excited that she's joining us today. And if you know anything about me, you know I scour the internet because I like to introduce my guests with some of their own words. So as we prepare to meet Dr. PJ, let's hear a little bit of her words.
The one thing that I am learning when the impossible is upon me is that God stays faithful and daily shows incredible support if you stop and look for it. If you just pause and say, okay, that this may be my day in infamy, but on the other side of my experience with infamy is an experience of influence. Every trial, every tribulation, every trouble, every bombing that comes into our lives come to make us a person of influence.
Good morning, Dr. PJ.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to be with you.
Oh my gosh, it's so amazing to have you here in this role, right? Because usually,
Yes.
you know, it's the other way around. So what I did not mention is that Dr. PJ was a client of mine, right? And so for when the pandemic hit, we had was it Triumphant Thursdays, and
Yes.
then the broadcast for LGBTQIA
The
veterans,
veteran among us.
the
Yes.
veteran among us.
Yes.
And so during that time, we got to know some good things about each other,
Yes.
right? Right.
Well, good.
And developed a really great relationship. So I'm so grateful that you said yes to today.
Yes.
And
And if
you
I
know,
may also say yes to Dr. Maureen, she is still we are still co-chaplains, so
yes, yes,
we'll
yes. So
continue
thank
with
you.
that.
I'm so grateful that Dr. Maureen is joining us
Yes.
today, and all of those of who are watching are joining us. So shout out where you're joining us from. Shout out, where you're watching, and of course, I know I see Dr. Maureen is drinking Earl Grey tea. Whatever you're sipping on, go ahead and shout that out in the comments. What are you sipping on this morning, Dr. PJ?
I'm sipping on water.
No,
Yes.
listen, that good old H2O. Listen,
Nothing like it.
there's
Absolutely.
nothing wrong with water. I know I need to drink more of it. Right,
Sure.
I
Sure.
need to drink more water, but coffee,
Good for
coffee
you.
is my drink of choice on these early Saturday mornings.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So happy belated Veterans Day!
Thank you. Thank you. It was quite
Thank you for
quite
your
a day. Quite a day.
thank you for
Um,
your service.
Went to some nursing homes to visit with some veterans,
Hmm.
and uh, participated in the ceremony that morning. The mayor's commissioners put on an annual breakfast and
Hmm.
at Cooley College, Law College, and
Yes.
it was an amazing. The one thing I have yet to get around to is getting my nails done. They
Mhm.
need to be did, but
Okay.
that's it. Went to a couple of restaurants because in our neighborhood, and I don't know, it may be true across the country that veterans get to eat free in a
Mm,
lot of restaurants. So
yeah.
I picked two. I picked Applebee's and Frizoli's. I don't know if you have a Frizoli's in Chicago.
I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm still learning Chicago. I'm brand spanking new still, so I'm still learning the lay of the land in Chicago.
Yes, yes, indeed.
So
So
what
it
did you
was
have to eat?
amazing. I had from Fazoli's, I had spaghetti with pepperoni,
Mm,
and from Applebee's, I had a hamburger, no bread, smothered in onions and mushroom.
okay.
Yes,
That sounds good. You had some good eating yesterday.
I
Good,
had
good,
some
good.
amazing food yesterday. Yes, I did.
Good, good. Well,
Not
you
as
deserve
amazing as when I cook, but that's okay.
that's all right. Sometimes we need to treat yourself. Listen, sometimes we need to treat yourself, and there's nothing
Absolutely.
wrong with that. And you deserve
Absolutely.
you deserve a good meal and so much more. Like you deserve above and beyond,
Thank you. Thank
you know,
you.
what you get. So let's talk about your experience, right? From those of I read your bio, those that have heard your bio. You have extensive experience, right? But I want to talk about the armed forces for a bit. So how many years, how many years were you in the armed forces? Were you in the U.S. Navy? And what inspired you to enlist?
15 years. 15 years. I missed 20 because after Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I needed some serious self-care.
Hmm.
And so I came out for about 5 years, and I reached my age limit before I could make up those 5 years.
Wow.
left up to me, I'd go back in the morning. I absolutely loved serving the sailors, especially the LGBT sailors.
Mhm.
And my colleagues are not happy with me, that or were not happy with me, because unfortunately we still do not see everyone as human beings.
Mhm. Mhm.
And not only is that true for the LGBTQ community, people of color tend to be ignored or invisible.
Mhm.
That we are, and we are very often the
Yes.
other that if we must, well, we will, but we don't have to tolerate the LGBTQ community. But even though you do, I said, well, you do what you do, and I'm here to do what I'm called to do, right?
Right. 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 Right.
So it was a wonderful, for the most part, it was a wonderful 15 years. Now, how did I end up in the Navy? Well, I was in seminary at the time,
Mhm.
and I was going in between classes, and this gentleman walks in his working whites. I know now that that's what he was wearing, his working whites.
Uh huh.
And I watched that handsome guy in that uniform. And when I got close to me, I said, "Excuse me, but tell me, please, who you are, what are you wearing, and why are you wearing it, and where can I go and get one?"
Mhm.
And it really was, when I initially went in, it was about the uniform. It was about the uniform. And I still have the opportunity to, and I went and signed up the same day.
Wow.
Yes, I did, the exact same day. And a few weeks after I signed up, we were deployed to Newport, Rhode Island
Mhm.
for 10 weeks of training, and it was rigorous. The marching with your with your backpack, and with your weapon, and with your mask, and walking, 10 miles a day with all that stuff on your back, and then uh, being dropped off 50 miles from the base, and having to survive a night of bullets, flying over your head, and learning how to put your gas mask on in 10 seconds. I tell you, if I were going to leave, that would have been the time for me to leave. But
Mhm.
once I went through all that, I said, I'm committed. I am committed. And still have the opportunity to put my uniform on and minister to our veterans. We are developing what I am calling the SFG, Space for Grace Veteran Friendly
Mhm.
congregations. And
Wonderful.
we are starting in the Covenant Association. And our mission, or our vision, is to invest in veterans a sense of belonging and tools to heal our spiritual and moral injuries,
Mm.
and hidden wounds, and silent fears, and liquid prayers, and broken spirit. And our mission is to reduce the number of deaths by suicide among veterans.
Mm.
The speaker that spoke yesterday is a survivor of an IUD. Of the 7 folks in the truck that was blown up, he was the only survivor.
Mhm.
And they had to sew his foot back, his right foot. He didn't lose it, but in the explosion, he went one way, and his right foot within his boot went another way.
Wow.
But the long story short is, he shared with us that 57% of veterans are likely to commit suicide. I
Mhm.
said, well, the last I heard, it was 22, 23 to 25 veterans per day. He says that averages out to 57% of
Mhm.
veterans will
Wow.
take their lives every day. So we're doing our best to get to them before they do that.
Yes, yes, yes. So now that you brought that up, let's go to talk about your book, and then we can come back to the other question. So let's talk about healing. my soul and purpose. And again, this is your ninth body of work, right? And it
Yes,
centers
yes,
on suicide intervention for
yes,
veterans. And
yes.
so there are a number, and I had this up, but I need to read. I need to read some of the the
Teasers.
yeah, well, the teasers, not the teasers, but some of the statements that on that back cover. Um,
Well, okay.
yeah, so I want to read some of that before you answer this question. So this is from Emilio Roman, right, who's the CEO and co-author of the Co-author Network, which is who you're a part of. It says, "Bravo, Chaplain PJ Anderson. The insights and stories shared in Healing My Soul and Purpose: A Veteran's Guide to Suicide Intervention has helped me understand veterans' real battles. It's not just on the front lines or during active deployment, but the mental landmines a veteran must navigate when they lose the ability to cope with everyday stressors. Your dedication and commitment to God, your country, and those whose voices have been silenced or ignored too long are admirable. Your mission to reduce the number of suicides among veterans and LGBTQ veterans is what heroes and champions are made of. I salute you." Uh, Norma Barra says, "A retired lieutenant commander, U.S. Navy Chaplain Corps, reviews how pain, this is what the book is about, reviews how pain and powerful love have guided her to her life purpose and the joy that comes from living that out every day with confidence, satisfaction, and commitment. This resource, Healing My Soul on Purpose, a Veteran's Guide to Suicide Intervention, is her lifelong service to veterans, LGBTQ veterans, and allies in writing. It's for those who suffer when their faith is not enough to get out of bed and live." My goodness. There were dark days in her journey of faith, too. She understands. Hang on for one more day. Listen to her voice. I'm just going to leave that there. There are others, but I want you to kind of talk about your own journey to the writing of this book. Why was the writing of this book necessary for you?
In 2020, the last of my siblings went to be with the Lord, and I found myself on earth without an immediate family. And uh, by then, I had written for a grant to deal with to deal with the past 70 years of my life. As a veteran, as a Black woman who served as what I now call the veteran radically inclusive chaplain in the United States Navy Chaplain Corps, and all of the injuries, the moral injuries that I experienced from colleagues in the chaplaincy and colleagues in civilian life, and it just felt as though the whole world or that God was saying, "You're going to deal with this, or this is going to deal with you. You you got your choices. Always have choices." And so I wrote and I was also mindful that the veteran is recognized on Memorial Day, I think 9/11, Veterans Day, and there are a couple of others, but but where are the words of healing that will come from the pulpit?
Mm,
I have sat in congregation after congregation after congregation, and there was nothing per se for the veteran in our pew.
mm,
Absolutely nothing,
mm, mm,
And in some churches, even Veterans Day was not celebrated. And so I said, okay, God, what shall I do? What shall I be? And I heard the Holy Spirit, whom I call wisdom, say, if you're going to take this journey, with healing your soul, number one, it has to be on purpose.
Mhm.
And number two, you've got to stand before me, saith the Lord, naked and unashamed.
Mhm.
And that was the part. It was standing before God and being honest about my feelings about some of the things that had about my particularly my commanding officers to whom I was abused, and I had to keep my mouth shut. And
Mhm.
you know, as Dr. Jamie may very well tell us next week, you know, that stuff compiles. It doesn't go away. The body never forgets. And so I sat down and wrote a proposal and received a grant from the Louisville, Kentucky, not Kentucky, Louisville Institute in Kentucky.
Mhm.
And for the first, to tell the truth, for the first year, nothing. Not a word, nada. No prayer, no quotes, no words on the papers, nowhere.
Mhm.
So I called, I requested an extension and got another year. And for 6 months of that year, blank, crickets.
Wow.
I said,
Wow.
wait, hold up. And then the floodgates seemed to have opened up.
Yeah.
And I got to writing and I didn't stop until it was as complete as it could be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just the story behind entering into this journey one on one with the Holy Spirit, whom I call wisdom,
Mhm.
on behalf of myself and my fellow veterans plus, because we have a lot of our pain is
Yeah.
very common, especially to the LGBTQ plus community
Mhm.
and the African Americans in the military
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and the Vietnam War veterans in particular,
Mhm. Mhm.
still going through hell.
Still going through hell. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, is there an excerpt of the book that you can read for us? Listen, I want to encourage the people to buy this book because I'm pre-order right now. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
I'll drop the link. I'll drop
Okay.
the website into the audience. But
Please.
yeah, yeah. But if
And now
here,
some of the audience like Dr. Maureen, because she has an article in the book,
mhm.
she will get her copy free. However, she may want to get one for her partner in crime, for her partner in life.
Mhm.
But yes, let me read a couple of these.
Yeah.
Herein are powerful and empowering stories of Vietnam veterans, veterans with brain injuries, veterans grappling with their sexual identity, and transgender veterans living in fear of their safety,
Mhm.
most of whom are intentionally progressing toward healing and recovery from abuse, assault, and guilt as they recognize their greatness within.
Mhm.
That's one of the most powerful quotes because it's really talking about the veterans. But I want to park here parenthetically in the words of Freddie Hayes and say that it's not only for veterans, it is for anyone who has been abused, who has been assaulted, who to whom guilt and shame has been imposed. Yes, get the book. Get the book. One of my other quotes is that I share in the book my perception of love, what love is not, and techniques to forgive yourself and everybody for everything that others have done to you. This is one of my favorites. I came in writing the book to understand that the root cause of anger and confusion is trying to live up to other people's expectations.
Mhm.
and your unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, it builds up. When the Holy Spirit gave me this, I said, yes, we are neither lost nor crazy or mental. We want people to stop thinking that we are lost because we don't live the way they think we ought to live. We don't want people to think that we are crazy just because we have some mental issues that we are working through, and some of the mental issues are fueling suicide ideation, which means thinking about it, making a plan to get it done, getting rid of your possessions because
Mm.
you know you're not going to be here. All of these indications that a person is either getting ready to die or a person is getting ready to harm themselves and perhaps others. Uh, but we are human beings looking for safe places and brave spaces
Yes.
to find love, balance, belonging, and relief from moral injury. Now,
Mm.
the hope, and it's not only about the veterans, it is about the ministry of SFG, Space for Grace, veteran friendly congregations. We are talking to pastors, getting their permission together with and talk with their veterans,
Mm-hmm.
and working with the veterans within the congregation to strengthen their faith and to rebuild camaraderie and to present to them the the cafe uh, titled titled intervention,
Mm-hmm.
the cafe titled intervention, so that they can learn what it means to be uh, and we're going to say an influencer to their fellow veterans,
Mm-hmm.
because these veterans know veterans. And so we want to get the story out there that we have SFG veteran friendly churches. And in these veteran friendly churches, we are specifically providing information to the veterans. Um, okay, I've already said we have shared challenges. One of the quotations that's anonymous when I started talking about forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness is the fragrance that flowers give when they are crushed. In
Wow.
other words, there is no forgiveness without pain. The two go together. It is out of our pain that we forgive everybody and everything and every place that we feel have offended us, that we feel have tried to crush us. And it is out of the crushing that the fragrance of forgiveness just exudes out of the pores of our skin, so to speak. Uh,
Mm.
Freedom is the opposite of fear.
Mm.
And we have conversations on daily affirmations to feed your soul, 10 ways to practice personal intervention. I'm really thrilled about the late Reverend Dr. Miles Monroe, Questions of the Heart.
Mhm, mhm.
And when we grapple with these questions, and I don't have them written down in
It's okay
front.
because they're gonna go get the book to get it. But go ahead.
Oh, okay, all right. Then there's a conversation or a cafe on what does God say about you.
Mhm, mhm.
We want people, we want veterans, we want our LGBTQ plus veterans and civilians to know what God says about you, and you start saying about you what God says about you,
Yeah,
and stop saying everything else.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
only what God says about you that's important.
yes, yes,
And
yes.
then of course we have the Grief and Bereavement Cafe
Mhm,
and the Suicide Intervention Cafe. And in our afterword, we explain what the SFG Veteran Friendly Church is and invite those who wish to have a veteran friendly church, they're going to be contacting Dr. Maureen and me, so
Wonderful.
so that we can help to connect our faith-based organizations with our veterans where they worship.
Yes, yes, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing some quotes and excerpts from the book. If you're watching right now and you're joining us right now live, I'm going to invite you to type your questions. So if you have questions for Dr. PJ, please be sure to type them out. I'll make sure that she gets them. So one of the things that has come up out of uh, you're sharing some excerpts of the book is the fact that ministries or churches don't have don't have a ministry or don't have something that's specific for veterans. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that that there is not something that's specific for veterans in many of these churches?
Well, I think one of the reasons is we are silent. You
Mm,
know, we don't want to talk about what's going on because we don't want to be shamed. We don't want to appear as weak. Uh, we know that very often faith-based organizations are anti-war, and as
mhm.
quiet as it's kept, so are many of the veterans, so are
Yeah.
many of those on active duty. It's a job. To quite honest, who wants to go to war, and who wants to talk about the collateral damage and the mental challenges that we are left with?
Yeah.
Number one, and number two, how, unless the leadership has served, uh, how can they understand me from the perspective of armed services?
Yes.
And I think that, so we have the silence, we have uh, the question of who can we really trust with what's going on, and how will people respond to us if we open up and we're honest. And I think number three is a lack of awareness that
Mhm.
we have, as far as I know, and I only know about my experience, that in the Michigan conference of the United Church of Christ, I have brought this ministry, and I believe it's the first. It
Mhm.
is the first, and even one of the veterans that I visited yesterday in a assisted living, who is on hospice. I got a call from one of our local church pastors, aware of and have invited us to her church to speak with her veterans. And because of that awareness, she called and asked me if I would go and visit with him. And so that's what's going to happen as we work on this ministry
Yes.
in the Covenant Association, and ultimately in the Michigan Conference, and hopefully ultimately across the country in a variety of denominations, but specifically in the United Church of Christ. This could very well be likened unto when we started the process for open and affirming.
Mhm.
That as churches became more aware of this ministry that is provided for a specific group, that these veterans, because it takes the veterans to buy into it. So,
Yes.
so in other words, if the veterans say no, thank you, then next church it becomes. But so far, praise the Lord, so good. Yes, and tomorrow I will be speaking at the first church that said yes to the SFG veteran friendly church. And I can hardly wait to see
Oh.
what's going on. And what we're doing through that process is developing a display with the veterans with the service members and veterans that are deceased. We're doing a little name plaque, and in the center of this plaque,
Mhm.
we will have a group picture of the veterans that are still living, and that's very exciting.
Yes, yes.
Last Sunday we gave the first Salute Your Soul Award to a veteran who turned 100 years old on
Wow.
May the 27th and can still do 100 push-ups a day at
Wow.
100 years old. So that's what I believe. It's a matter of awareness. It's a
Yes.
matter of, yes, from the veterans. We would appreciate, because it also includes me in bringing with me someone from the VA that can tell them about their benefits and
Hmm.
how they can get benefits, how survivors, if the veteran is deceased, and their benefits, making certain that our veterans have their DD 214, which is the form that tells the world, yes, this person has served and where they served, and what their awards were, and gives the veteran a free flag, a free tombstone, and if you're buried in a veteran cemetery, a free grave.
Wow, wow. I mean, this is just like such an expansion of
Yes,
pastoral care, right?
yes,
Of care for,
absolutely.
yes. Oh goodness, I'm so proud of the work. I'm proud of the work that you are doing
Thank
for our
you.
veterans. We're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna take a quick break. So if you take a sip of water, Dr.
Okay.
PJ, and we'll be right back in a minute or two to continue our conversation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Dr. PJ. So, again, if you're watching with us, I want you to connect, follow, like, subscribe. Connect, follow, like, and subscribe. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and on YouTube at Cara Solutions LLC. We're on Twitter for now. I'm still debating whether I'm going to stay there at Cara Solutions. And as always, you can head over to our website at www.cara-solutions.com to find out more about Cara Solutions and the services that we provide, and also about Inspire. Don't forget that hyphen in the middle at cara-solutions.com. Again, you can listen later. We are on Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Bullet in Flight Radio. We ask that you connect with us there, follow us on all of those platforms, because after every live session, those the replay is uploaded to all of these podcast platforms for you to listen to at your leisure. So if you missed our entire first season, please go back. You can go ahead back to either one of our social media platforms or to one of our podcasting platforms to either view or listen to one of our previous shows. Also, Inspire Swag. I want to encourage you to head over to my website and get some Inspire Swag. So there's T-shirts and cups, and if there's something that you want that is that you want something custom made, that can happen too. I want to thank Scott Michelle's Tees and Things for hosting Cara Solutions Swag since our inception. I'm so grateful for her, and I do not. What I thought I had a ad, but next week I'm gonna make sure I put an ad up. I thought I had it in here, but I don't. But thank you so much, Sky. And we don't want you to miss next week. We will have Dr. Jamie Edie Chisholm with us, and we're going to be talking about grief, loss, and making it through. Grief, loss, and making it through. Now that the fall is slowly morphing into winter, and the darkness of the days are longer, and the holidays are coming up. Many of us are challenged in the areas of dealing with grief and loss, dealing with how to make it through these times, through the winter moments of our life. And so I do really want to invite you to please come and join us as we have this important conversation with Dr. Jamie Edie. All right. And so thank you again for joining us. We're going to get back into our conversation with with Dr. PJ.
We are not our situations. No. We are not our circumstances. We are birthed in the image of goodness and the likeness of love.
Welcome back. Oh my goodness. You're just so full of wisdom. You're so full of wisdom.
Well,
Oh my
thank you.
goodness. And
I
you're
got
such
that
an
quote though from
inspiration.
I got that quote from our beloved Bishop Yvette A. Flunder.
Yes,
First time I heard her say, "You are not your circumstances. You are a child of God." I said, "Yeah, my."
yeah, yeah. It's time that we need to be reminded of that, right? Because so often um, we allow our circumstances. I mean, and it's not that we do it intentionally, right?
Exactly.
Trauma does that. Life does that, right?
Yes,
Um,
it does.
and we tend to look at ourselves as the things that we go through, as the things that we've done, right?
Hmm.
As the
Hmm.
things that has happened to us, as the things that other people have done to us. We look at ourselves when we look in the mirror, we see that, and we don't see, we don't see who we are as children of the divine. And
Exactly.
so it's really important to know that we are not our circumstances,
No, we are not.
right? We are
No,
not.
we are
Whew.
not.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing all that you have shared so far. You have been, and I know you talked about it, you kind of brought it up throughout our conversation. You've been such a strong advocate, not only for just for veterans overall, but specifically for those who identify as LGBTQI plus.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so what was it that, and you may have alluded to before, but I want to unpack it a little bit more. What was it that compelled you to engage in this specific work? And can you share some of the ways that you advocate for LGBTQI plus veterans on the local and national level?
Well, I got into this at one of uh, our convocations, the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries convocations, and I met at that convocation uh, a who I met at that convocation a veteran who was who was transitioning from from chief in the military to um, to a trans woman.
Mm-hmm,
Okay, from a male chief to a trans woman. She is now my soul daughter,
mm-hmm.
Dr. Monica
Yes, Dr.
Joy.
Joy. Yes.
And it was during about a 2 year period of time when we were talking almost nightly, and she was sharing with me uh, what the process was all about, the emotional roller coaster, the spiritual roller coaster. And we still talk from time to time. And when we're talking, a lot of times we'll talk 2 or 3 hours. Uh, and that is what made me aware
Mm,
of a specific community within a specific community whose voices were definitely silenced.
mm,
And
mhm,
I said, well, I can do something about this. I can become a listener, and I have gone to what we called in the military was when we had to go before the captain because something has gone awry, and I would accompany the veterans, the service members, particularly the LGBTQIA, to they call the captain's mass, um, and I would appeal to the captain or to the admiral, whoever was sitting in the chair. I would appeal to them on behalf of the service member. That's where it really began. But where it became, because see, that was predominantly a white
mm,
community.
mhm,
But when I got into my own community and started talking with people like Dr. Monica, I felt enriched and empowered to
Yes.
walk with the LGBTQ, particularly the transgender uh, 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 portion of the community, because because their quest for justice, I truly believe, is the poster person or poster issue for rights, uh, marriage equality rights, a right to to be trans, and should not have to live in fear for their lives.
Mhm.
So I have spoken to the local police, asking them, lighten up on the LGBTQ community, lighten up, get to know who they are. You will find that they are just as human, and probably uh maybe a little more humble
Mhm.
than the rest of us, because of what the transgender community in particular. I have gone to hospitals and visited with trans people who were having their operations,
Mhm.
and I've held their hands, and I've had I've talked with transgender uh, LGBTQ, but particularly transgender folk, about checking in with me to make sure that that suicide ideation is not creeping up on them. I have appealed to churches, African American churches.
Mhm.
Now, you talking about a journey, all of whom have turned me down, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay. I'm only here to serve the entire community of veterans, and specifically the LGBTQ veterans. And I have no problem when a pastor says to me, "Oh, well, we welcome everybody." Okay, praise the Lord. But how many of the LGBT community sits in your pulpit I mean, yeah, sits in the pulpit on Sunday mornings?
Mhm.
How many LGBTQ people do you have as Sunday school teachers, as trustees, as deacons, as deaconess? I just go on down the line, and that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yes. Yes.
They're
Yes.
not going to go that far. Now, you can come in here and worship with us, but you that's about as far as I'm going to let you go. So, in which case, my response is, you're not a veteran plus friendly church.
Mhm. Mhm.
You have biases, you have
Yeah.
prejudices, not only against people who don't look like you, but also against people who love differently than you do. But baby, love is love is love is love is love.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
those are the ways that in which I advocate for our transgender community, for our LGBTQ community in general,
Yeah.
but for the trans community in specific. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Monica. She has done well,
Mhm.
and she is doing well. And she now is in a coveted position with the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. But she keeps her eye on the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries and the United Church of Christ.
Wonderful. 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 What would you say to, or what advice, or what can you offer to either veterans or loved ones of veterans who veterans who may be having feelings, who may be having suicide ideation, right? Or their loved ones who want to help the veterans in their life, or pretty much anyone. I mean, now we're focusing on veterans, but other folk outside of veterans have suicidal ideation. Um, what kind of guidance could you offer them in helping their loved one? or even helping themselves if they're dealing with suicidal ideation.
Yes, I'm not being. I hope I'm not being prideful when I say the one of the best things they could do is purchase the book,
Mm,
because in the book there are ten personal intervention skills
okay.
that they can develop and use in their family. Because see, until the individual who has someone in the family with suicide ideation or have lost a member of their family by way of suicide, until an individual gets an understanding of how something like that could happen,
Hmm.
until an individual gets a good indication of what the acute signs are, until an individual is willing to let go of the tendency to put blame, shame, and guilt in the game.
Hmm.
Because there's until the individual comes to understand there was I did everything that I could, and the doing everything that I could boils down to information
Yeah.
and boils down to the ability to listen without judgment. These are some of the things that they can do. They can read in the book the three persons that I talked about, uh, who two of whom committed suicide,
Mm,
and that is King Saul. Look at why King Saul. Now, King Saul is probably the ideal veteran in Holy Writ
mm,
who suffered from suicide ideation, who was and out of his jealousy toward David, and out of his desire to be the King of Kings, and I don't mean that in comparison to Christ, but to go down in history as the most important king that ever lived, that won all of the battles. But because he knew David was going to be the next anointed king, even though he was still a child so much. When he was selected by King Saul, uh, or was that I don't remember who selected him or who claimed, but I think it was either Samuel or Saul that went to look for somebody who had seven sons. Who had seven sons? And he looked at all of those sons and he said, "Well, maybe you've got one more."
got one
Because,
more.
yeah, and that one more was David.
Yes.
But King Saul is a good example of someone who needs some attention and mental care.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And reading the stories in our veterans who committed suicide. Samson. Now, why would somebody as strong and as good looking and as popular, a man of color in Holy Writ, who is really one of our veterans, why would he commit suicide?
Mm,
Because he finally came to a point after losing his eyes, after losing his strengths. He said, "I will die with the enemy." And he killed more people on that day than he did his entire life in the ministry that he was put on this earth to do.
mm,
So and then we have Jesus, who expressed suicide ideation. When Jesus says things like, "No, you will not take my life, but I will lay down my life for you." That really is suicide ideation conversation. And I know we don't like
listen,
to.
that is a deep conversation right
Yeah,
there. I mean, we're gonna have you back to
I'd
to
love to
unpack
come back.
that
Yes,
because yeah, that is whew, yeah.
but think about that. No, you're not going to take my life, but I will lay it down for you. You
Now,
know.
now, the folks gonna say, "Why Jesus laid this?" Up? Yeah, we need to have like
There
a
we go.
whole side conversation,
There
like
we
a
go. There
special
we go.
conversation just on that because we don't like to kind of think about when we talk about the biblical text, right? And I think the one suicide that we kind of is Judas's suicide, right?
You got a bad rap. You got a
Yeah,
bad rap.
we gotta focus on that, but we don't look at the other. Many of us don't see Samson's act as suicide,
But it was. It was.
right? Um,
Yes.
and so some people will say, well, is that glorifying suicide because Samson killed more people? Anyway, yeah. If we get on this conversation right now, we will not end because there's a whole lot of unpacking that has to go on with that. But I think that would make for some rich
Yes.
discussion and rich Bible study.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
so yeah,
I include the scriptures.
yeah. We're gonna have to talk about that. We're gonna have to talk about that. So my last question for you, because we're getting ready to wrap up. I know that this book, and you shared some of your personal story, and I know this book has some of you in it, right?
Yes.
That many of the things that you write about were birthed from your lived experience,
Yes.
So uh how do you navigate, right, the ups and downs, the mountain highs and valley lows? Like, how do you navigate the tough times in your personal and professional life? What keeps you going? What helps to keep you going?
What helps to keep me going, of course, is prayer. Having speaking to God out loud in the way that I talk to God. I'm just a subject, but I always praise the Lord first. I always enter into my meditations with praise. Then I'll do some Bible study. I've gone back to reading the Bible from the beginning to the end, and only to see what jumps out at me from the last time that I read it. And I continually take courses with Iyanla Van Zant. Right now, she is doing a Sunday morning cafe on learning to love your Bible
Mm-hmm.
from the metaphysical point of view. And so, what am I saying? That because of my love for revelation knowledge, I tend to seek courses and classes that will feed my mind on meditation, on learning to love your Bible from the metaphysical point of view. I'll take local classes on managing your own grief.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm constantly not well. I'm continually feeding my soul with information that I need to stay
Yeah.
positive, to stay saved, to stay sanctified, to stay righteous. I have to feed myself continually
Yeah.
to stay up. I don't need not only to stay up, but to not go down. Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty steady now since finishing the book and getting so much, regurgitating so much of my pain.
Yeah.
And we also have transcribed stories from fellow veterans, including Dr. Maureen. 40 years in the desert
Yeah.
is her story, and one of my stories is titled "My Soul Looks Back in Wonder." And one of the Vietnam veterans that I interviewed gave me his story. He said, "I'll give it to you if you promise not to use my name." And I think the title of his journey is "The Two Most Important Words I Want to Hear." And so it really, this book, really, this journey, this veteran's guide to suicide intervention really opened up and clarified
Mm-hmm.
the reason I am here. And so now that I know exactly why I am here, I
Yes.
do everything I can to feed myself with as much knowledge and as much wisdom as humanly possible so that I can feed my fellow veterans.
Wonderful. on the
Yes,
on the
that's what keeps me going. That's what gets me up early in the morning on a Saturday to be a part of Inspire.
Yes. Oh, well, we thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing with us. Once again, I want to invite everyone that's watching that will listen to it in the replay to go to saluteyoursoul.com. Go to saluteyoursoul.com and pre-order the book. Pre-order the book.
We're having a
Healing My
special. You
Soul and
don't want to.
Purpose.
You
Oh,
don't
yes,
want
it's
to
a
miss
special.
this. Would you
Go
put the
ahead.
book up again? Cover up again?
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay. Thank
I'm
you.
going to remove this so that I can put the
Okay.
cover up.
Yes.
Heal My
Yes.
Soul on Purpose, a veteran's guide to suicide intervention. Listen, if you are a veteran or you know someone who is, or one of your loved one is, please, please, please get this book. Please get this book. Please support. Get this book, and and buy an extra copy so that you can share
You
to
know that that's the
with
special that
somebody
we're
else.
that's the special that we're having right now. If you buy one, you get the other one for $5.
Okay, listen.
Yeah.
Buy one, get one for $5. I placed that link inside of the chat once again for those who are going to be listening later on. It's saluteyoursoul.com. Saluteyoursoul.com. Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank
BJ, for
you.
joining us. We will have you back because we need to have that conversation. We need
Okay.
to have that conversation. We'll have you back again. Thank you for hanging out with me on Inspire. I
Thank
love
you
you
for
so
the
much.
invitation. I love
I
you
love you so
too.
much,
Thank you.
princess.
All
Thank you
righty.
again.
Till next time.
Till next time. Once again, I want you to connect, follow, like, and subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on social media because we don't want you to miss all of what is happening with Inspire and all of what's happening with Cara Solutions. And again, if you want to listen later, you want to download it, kind of listen to it as you're traveling, listen to it in your car, you can head over to Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Bullet in Flight Radio, where you can catch the podcast version of this live stream. And I want to invite you to join us next week. Again, join us next week for Grief, Loss, and Making It Through. Our guest will be Dr. Jamie Edie Chisholm. She's a loss navigation specialist, and she's the founder of Thoughtful Transitions. This is a conversation that you do not want to miss. If you're someone who's dealing with grief and loss, if you're someone might be dealing with seasonal depression, who's someone who may be estranged from your family, and you're finding it a challenge to get through the holiday season, I want you to come and be in conversation with us. And if that's not you, I know you know someone who might be. Share it, right? Share this information. We want to make sure that as we purpose to inspire you, we also want to help you. Amen. So please join us next week for Grief, Loss, and Making It Through with Dr. Jamie Edie Chisholm. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us again. We look forward to seeing you next week. And until next time, I want you to stay lifted. I want you to stay motivated. But most of all, I want you to stay inspired. God bless you, and we will see you next week.